Hey, Shannon Pickard here with this month's Pop Culture Classroom Connection. We're just coming off the summer, and there was lots of cool stuff that happened this summer that your kids are going to be talking about this school year. And the thing that I'm going to focus on this month is how to identify your students. They all fall into a category, and most students say that they have their personal identity based on the groups and the cliques that they hang out with, which is based on the movies and music and TV shows and things like that that they watch. There are some really cool ones, lots of albums out, lots of new comics out, and movies out this summer that your kids are going to be talking about. They don't expect you to know it, but you will, and it's going to make them pop up and be like, wow, how did you know about that? That's awesome. You don't have to go watch the stupid movies that they're watching. You don't have to listen to the dumb songs and pull out the lyrics and things like that, or what are the latest comics. I do all that stuff for you. I've done it all this summer, kept up with all of it, and here it is. You just push play and watch it, and you're going to be armed and equipped with some really cool techniques and tips that you can just drop in here and there, just pepper in whatever you're already doing, just drop in a line here and there, and your students will be like, wow, they're going to perk up. How did you know about that? That's awesome. Instantly popping you up into the cool teacher status type of a thing. You connect with them. When you connect with them on their level, they trust you, and if they trust you, they'll follow you. Make your school year a lot easier, and you can get through to even the most troubled kids, all right? The toughest kids that you've got, it'll pop right through them. This is a cool month of Pop Culture Classroom Connection, all right? You're going to love it. Check it out. It's very interesting with finding out who you are, because that's the theme and the topic of this month's Pop Culture Classroom Connection, is finding out who you are, which clique that you are a part of. And I don't mean you, of course, I mean your students, and identifying which clique they are a part of. Because I promise you, everybody that's in your classroom or that you work with, they're a part of a clique. And most students, when surveyed, most students say they identify who they are as people based on which group they belong to. And it's really cool because Usher has a new album out called Raymond versus Raymond, and it's all about finding out who you are. And you have to actually watch the interview with Usher to know exactly what this album is about. Like, why did he call it Raymond versus Raymond? Usher is the hottest R&B superstar in the world right now, and he's got a really cool depth. There are certain people that are celebrities that you can point out to your kids as good role models, and Usher is one of them. And he's also a teenage phenomenon. He started when he was 13 years old, and at 14 he was discovered at a talent show by somebody, and by 15 years old he was producing stuff and recording stuff professionally, and then he made his first album, and it just went on from there. I mean, he started, it's a lesson to learn, and you can pass this on to your students. All you have to do is ask them, has anybody heard the new any tracks off of the new Raymond versus Raymond CD? Usher came out with this brand new CD called Raymond versus Raymond. Anybody have it or like it or whatever? And of course they're gonna be some people that say yeah, absolutely. And then just ask them, does anybody know why he called it Raymond versus Raymond? And probably somebody's gonna say, well, that's his name, and it is. His name is Usher Raymond IV. That's his name. And they might say that, yeah, it's because that's his name. But then you can add, yeah, but why is it called Raymond versus Raymond? It's, it's the same person. And it's really cool. I included the link down here at the bottom. I included the link to the interview. ABC did an interview with him where he sort of explains this just a little bit. So as people that want to connect with young people, I think it's very important that we stop and be real about it and identify which group each one of our students is a part of. As an actor, I have to do it all the time, and you just got to get past stereotypes because it is stereotypical. But it's important to identify. Like, as an actor, I know that I can go out for certain roles, and I better know which roles I shouldn't go out for, because knowing who you're not is just as important as knowing who you are. And like if they were casting for someone who was 5'10", of Hispanic descent, that's not me. If they're casting for 6'2", with dark hair and brown eyes, that's me. And if they're casting for a young girl who is your girl next door, tiny, petite, blonde, that's a certain person. That's a certain girl. It doesn't have anything to do with who you are as a person. They're just looking for what you look like and who you're identified with. And if they're casting for, well, no, we're looking for someone who's kind of introverted into themselves. We're looking for someone that might have, black, like dyed black hair and black around their eyes and pale skin. Oh, that's a certain student walking around your school right now. As an actor, you're trained to identify which stereotype you fall into and not get offended by it. Because, we all fall into a category. We do. And so do your students. And it's crazy how many of them, when surveyed, agree that they identify themselves as a person according to which group they fall into. So here are some groups that you have at your school. And I'm just going to grab this and read off some. I just wrote some down. All right? You have freaks, geeks, goths, emos, jocks, preps, slackers, queens, populars, punks, ghettos. All right, those are just a few. Okay? Now, it's very important that you identify which one your students are, but you don't necessarily call them out on it. But if you know that this is an emo kid, all right? Now, if you don't know what an emo kid is, I'm sure you do because you're in the classroom with them, but sometimes people don't pick up on that kind of stuff. But it's important. If you can identify who they identify with, you can communicate with them on that level. If you've got an emo kid, which basically is short for emotional kid, and basically they identify with being, woe is me, my life sucks, I hate myself and I hate my parents, and they usually wear all black and goth and they're just real introverted. And most of the time it's a front, because that's kind of it's their woe is me, poor pitiful me mentality has become who they identify. Like, that's how they identify themselves now. So sometimes they don't even have any problems. I know several teenagers, they have a great life. Their families are together. They got everything they need. They can go to any college they want to go to. But they look like, every time you see them, they look like somebody just ran over their dog. And they're just doing that as an identification. There's nothing actually wrong with them. And then, of course, you have some kids that there actually is something very wrong with them, and I wouldn't call them an emo kid. I would call them a troubled teen that needs some help. But it's important to identify which one of those are, because you can communicate with them differently. But it's important for you to identify it, but it's not necessarily important for you to identify it to them, because then they could put up defenses and walls, because nobody likes being called a freak or a slacker. But well, actually, some people do. Some people are freaks because they want to be a freak, and they want everybody to know, I'm a freak, I'm crazy, because that's the identification that they're going with. And if that's the case, and if you know that somebody dresses like that just for attention and they're cool with it, joke with them about it, make fun of them. But only if you've got that rapport with them, and only if they're that kind of kid. If they're self-conscious about how they look, certainly not. But some kids, spike their hair up and color it all blue and just crazy, just for the purpose of getting some attention. Give them some attention. Let them have the attention, and in a funny, fun type of way. I know a kid that he just constantly, he wears his hair with so much gel in it, and it dries wet looking. And so when I see him, I'm like, oh, you swam here again today. That's awesome. And he knows I'm kidding, but we have a connection because I'm making fun of him. But at the same time, I make fun of myself. So anytime you can make fun of yourself, you get away with picking on other people a little bit too. Now, as an educator, don't make fun of kids or pick on them, but it actually, funny and using humor, it can actually keep things real. It can break the ice, and it can be a way to connect with them, but on their level. If a teenager comes in and they got these black boots on that come up to their knees, and they're all laced up, and crazy socks and stuff like, make a comment about them. They're obviously wearing them so people will notice them. Make a comment, even if it's funny, even if it's kind of making fun, but not in a put down kind of a way. So it just depends on your students, but it's important for you to identify which ones your students are, so that you kind of know how to talk to them, so that you know what quotes to bring them, so you know what movies to watch, so that you can write me and tell me, hey, I've got this kid, what movies are out there for that. You can feel free to do that.